Is for Monday, March 4th, 2013. And before we get started, we would like to welcome on behalf of the town of Milford, the Scouts of Troop 2, who are here to complete one of the requirements needed for their Eagle Required Communication Merit Badge. So, gentlemen, thank you for being here, and like I said before, we hope will be informative and entertaining for you this evening. The first item that we have is the signing of the warrant.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor. Any opposed? That's unanimous. We have meeting minutes of February 25th, 2013.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor. Any opposed? That too is unanimous. Citizen participation. Is there anyone in the audience not scheduled to meet with us who would like to address the board on any issue? Going once, going twice? Okay, we're all set to move on to our regular public hearings and scheduled appointments. Before we get started with that, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our new incoming town administrator, and that's Attorney Richard Villani. And Rick, you're here. How does it feel?
Feels good. I just want to thank the members of the board. I want to thank Mr. Solazzi for trying to bring me up to speed, and I look forward to working with each of you, and I'm ready to go.
Good.
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 I want to thank you. Thank you.
Good. We're glad you're here. And with that, we are going to move on to our next appointment. Town Council Moody is here and also has representatives from the law office, and you'll have to help me with this, Shefsky and Froelich.
Perfect.
You got it.
Okay, good. Well,
Nice job.
I passed that one. All right,
Doesn't
so.
happen often. Nice job.
No, okay. So with that, you both know Jerry, and if you could just introduce yourselves for the board, and we'll be pleased to hear your presentation.
Sure. My name is Caesar Freilich. Most people call me Sid, C-I-D. I'm one of the named partners in the firm, and this is my other partner.
I'm Kim Kopp. Obviously, I'm of the law firm of Shefsky and Freilich. I've been in Shefsky and Freilich for about 16 years. I'm a partner there that practices in the gaming area.
So as you know, Milford has been approached by a possible casino proposal. Mm-hmm. One of the developers looking to get the permit in the Eastern District. Town Council has done some investigation in this. We were presented with your written materials, which I found impressive. And I think Milford is in the position of trying to put the resources in place so that if and when this proposal does hit us, we're able to analyze it quickly, efficiently, weigh the cost and the benefit to the community so that we can make an informed, educated decision going forward one way or the other on the proposal. So with that, if you'd like to basically give us some of your thoughts or ideas as to, what services you might be able to provide to the town in that regard.
Just stay here.
Yeah, that's fine. Right there, that's fine. Sure.
A short presentation we've prepared for each of you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
We're a firm from Chicago. We have 71, 72 lawyers, depending on the given day of the week. A third of our practice is corporate securities, a third is litigation, and a third is real estate. In the corporate department, we have 9 attorneys who practice the vast majority, and in several cases, all of their time on gaming law. We started in that field about 25 years ago. We helped pass some legislation in Colorado and sort of got interested in it, and it's developed since then. We're a little bit unusual in that we do every aspect of gaming. So we've represented states in connection with enabling legislation that will permit gaming. We've represented gaming boards. Indeed, one of our partners was the initial gaming board chairman of the State of Missouri Gaming Board. We represent towns, which I'll come back to in a second. We represent some of the casino companies, vendors, investment bankers, pretty much the panoply, the entire panoply of people who play in the gaming field. In terms of specific municipalities, we probably cut our teeth the most in terms of a municipality versus a state in the city of Detroit. That was probably 15, 16, 17 years ago. We helped draft the legislation. In fact, we took the laboring oar on drafting legislation for the state of Michigan, and then we recommended to the city that they run a particular process. In that case, because there were 44 people that initially expressed interest in being one of the 3 developers for the city, we ran a fairly extensive, very long RFP process to whittle it down from initially 44 to 11 to 7 to 5 and ultimately to the final 3. 2 large publicly held companies at the time. One was MGM, the other was Mandalay Bay, and then a local group that was going to be self-managed. It's the so-called Greektown group that ultimately ended up having a tribe that was its partner, such as, somewhat the same as being proposed here. That process was a very successful process because the 3 casinos probably, because the legislation was different, probably forestalled the city of Detroit's financial problems until very recently. They probably contributed over the 12 or 13 years they were in existence well in excess of $1 billion to the city itself, that helped keep it alive until very recently. After that representation, and those casinos did quite well. One of the, you'll hear at some point in time that one of the casinos went under, but that wasn't because the casino wasn't doing well. It's because one of the partners, one of the equity partners, ran into a jam and ended up filing for bankruptcy because he was trying to preserve his equity in the deal. After that, we started representing some smaller municipalities, and then of late, the 5 that we currently represent are the city of Chicago, which has been trying to get a casino in Chicago since 2002. I am told by the political pundits it looks like it's actually going to happen shortly, sometime in the next few months potentially. Another city in Illinois, city of Rockford. Rockford is a town of about 150,000 people. It's a community that was on the river, kind of fallen a little bit on hard times, came back with a very strong-willed young mayor. It's coming back substantially, and he's looking at it as a regenerator of some of the portions of downtown that are somewhat blighted, and as an economic engine. In addition to those 3 places, those 2 cities, we are currently being considered for one other town in Illinois where we would represent the town also. In addition, as you know, here in Massachusetts, in the Commonwealth, we started out representing, several years ago, we started out drafting pieces of the legislation, and there were pieces that were really for the big institutional investors. What you'll find in these transactions is that a lot of the equity comes from very large hedge funds. And the laws in most of the states weren't set up for hedge funds to be investors, because the amount of due diligence that had to be done by the gaming boards was so massive that the hedge funds didn't want to invest. And those are people that typically you'd like to have invest because they have a lot of money, so to the extent a few extra dollars is needed for this, that, or the other, they're typically willing to put it up. So we were asked by the legislature here in Commonwealth to help them draft some particular 2 or 3 pages of the legislation. From that, we got to meet a few people, and ultimately we ended up getting a phone call 9 months ago, something like that, from the city of Taunton.
May of last year, yeah.
May. We did that work. That work is largely complete. We helped negotiate all the mitigation impacts that your statute requires, which is that all the mitigation, all the negative impacts that can hit a city have to be paid for by the developer. Well, you have to figure out what those are. So you've got to go out and retain probably anywhere from 5 to 6 consultants to analyze it for you, do your study for you rather than a developer doing the study, so that you have an independent.
And just to stop, is that the type of service that your firm would help coordinate
Yes.
for us?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
The various disciplines, whether it's environmental,
Yep.
traffic, economic?
You'll probably need a minimum of 5 and maybe 6, and they will be, traffic is always a
Traffic's the
big
big
issue.
one. That's always big.
Water, sewer, electricity, alternate power sources, because all of these casinos want their own power generation facility. Impacts on the fire department, impacts on the police department, impacts on your school system, because some portion, of the 3,000 permanent casino employees. Some portion, usually it's considered to be 5 to 10%, comes from out of state. They're the supervisors that have to train the other people on, how to
GM,
do the general manager, people of that sort. So those, some portion of those might have kids in school, so it has an impact on the school system and a few other things of that sort. So we did all that work for Taunton, retained the services of those different consultants. Some of them are the people that are nationally renowned, so it's not as difficult to find. The traffic engineers in Massachusetts, they're all retained by somebody. So the traffic engineering consultants are a little bit harder these days, only because, in every one of the 11 people that have applied for a license, they've got a traffic consultant. Every one of the sites they've chosen, that particular municipality has a traffic consultant. So you've got to make sure that you don't end up with a conflict there. We did that work in Taunton. Taunton was a little different in that, one, it didn't have to go through an RFP process because there was only one person that showed up somewhat similarly to you. Number two, it was a tribe, so many of the provisions that are included in the state statute didn't have to be included in that governmental agreement between the tribe and the city of Taunton, so that was a little bit quicker. That work is 95% completed. There's a few phone calls that come up, an occasional meeting that comes up, but it's pretty well done because the agreement is fully negotiated, signed, sealed, delivered. The referendum was taken. It was passed by some 63-64% favorable, and now they're sort of playing with the governor's office on a compact, which has been well announced or well publicized. As soon as that compact is done, our only job will be to review it to make sure it's not inconsistent with the governmental agreement that the city entered into, and then we just sit back and wait for the federal government to take that land into trust. Similarly, several months back, we were retained by the city of Springfield, and as you may have heard somewhere, they have brought down the number of developers to 2. The mayor there is trying to decide whether he's going to advance 2 or 1 to the state. We have drafted a host community agreement that's out to the developers. All the mitigation work has been done, completed by both sides. So it's just going to be a decision by the mayor in the not-too-distant future. Is it 2 people or 1 person? We still have work there, but the real heavy lifting is by and large completed. There's still negotiations that have to be concluded with developers and the like, but I would say that while it's still a significant amount, the vast majority of the work is already done. We are contacted from time to time by either a city, one in Iowa that is currently taking a look at maybe it's going to do something. We might assist there, we might not. But as I said, we have 9 lawyers, 5 partners that spend, well, these days almost 100% of their time working on this. What makes us a tad maybe unique-ish is that several of us have had positions other than as lawyers with a casino company. I was on the board of directors of a large publicly held company and also on the board of directors of a smaller company that had 4 or 5 casinos. So we've sort of learned the inside, if you will. We have a little bit better sense on, what's the real, how's a casino really work? Is it the big black magic box that people think it to be, or is it a little bit more of a normal business with certain specialties and the like? And that makes us a tad different in that we've seen that, both sides of it, either on behalf of a state or a municipality or on behalf of a developer or operator, and kind of bring a little bit of that business aspect to bear. I think that what made us particularly useful to both Taunton and Springfield was that, much like any jurisdiction that doesn't have one, I think as somebody in government once said, it's what you don't know that you don't know. I think that's what we help bring to the table. So it becomes an issue of, if you're inclined, retaining the consultants, making sure that, that's not on your nickel, you're not paying a dime for that. A developer either steps up to the plate right at the very beginning and says, I'll pay for all that, or not. If he says not, then it's a pretty simple decision. If he doesn't have the faith in the deal, then why would you put up any money? You then go out with the consultants and you find out what the impacts are. You find out what your pluses are, what the benefits can be, which is, jobs and money, and what the negatives are. And there are some negatives. It's going to be more traffic, more people. Now, this location isn't as, traffic tied up, if you will, but it's still going to have an impact on the city. And then you kind of weigh those and determine whether you want to go to the next step, which is to enter into a host community agreement with the developer. while you're doing these mitigation studies, you'll be talking to the developer in terms of giving them a feel for what you're looking for. In other words, it isn't so much, you know, I'm looking for you to help me with this traffic mitigation, because the statute basically says the developer must pay for that, so that's not optional. He can conclude that it's too much money, potentially, and turn it down, but it's not as if there's a negotiation over the topic. If the two traffic consultants come back and say, listen, it's going to require, you know, 6 left turn lanes, 4 additional lights, the following curb cuts, the following additional safety measures, and that's going to cost X, he's either paying or there's no deal. It's as simple as that. What I'm really referring to is the deals that exist out in the communities are pretty varied. Part of it is what you want. Part of it is how well-heeled your developer is, what he thinks this market can generate in terms of revenues, as to therefore what can he afford. Because I think the big thing with casinos is 10 years ago there was very little competition. So if there was a city that wanted a license and the state had approved gaming, it was very profitable. It was a semi-monopoly.
It was a semi-monopoly in the region, for sure, sir.
And they made rates of return were 30, 40, 50%. They make huge numbers. I mean, just massive numbers to the developers. What's happened with the amount of competition that has now been created throughout the country, the casinos don't make that kind of money, number one. Number two, in the, quote, old days, you know, 15, 20 years ago, tax rates aren't what they are now for most of these casinos. In Las Vegas, the tax rate all in, you know, well below 9%. Atlantic City, same. A handful of the initial jurisdictions were in the lower numbers, you know, with people now, legislatures now saying, pay me 25, 26, 27%, which is your effective rate here, after you include some things that aren't just taxes but are fees, but have the same impact, 27%. They're still profitable, don't get me wrong. They make a lot of money, but they don't make the kind of massive dollars they used to. So the casino developer's got to figure out, here's my mitigation costs, and it might be $5 million a year. So I've got to pay that, I know that. The city says, you know, as in your case, I've got a little bit of a surplus. I don't have a massive deficit, so I've got to make sure this fits for my community. So if it does, I want the following things in addition, whether it's getting them to rehab a project, whether it's getting them to, you know, put up money for you to do something that you think is important for the citizens. You've got to kind of start those conversations with them sooner, so that you're not wasting your time and finding out that, oh, well, we really meant to pay for is traffic mitigation. You'll get the jobs and that's it. So there's some, you really can't wait until the end. The only other thing I would tell you is that the process is, it's capable of being done quickly. We did it in Taunton in
I would say 3 more months.
3 to 4 months.
I mean, maybe 3 months to referendum, so it was very quick.
It's
The statute dictated that, dictated that because it had different timelines for the tribe to get its referendum approved and then enter into a compact before Region C, so to say, of the state would be opened. So they met those deadlines, but to meet those deadlines was
a
lot of
Herculean effort.
Hurried 8 weeks initially, and
Right.
then we went to the referendum, which has to be posted for at least 60 days.
And you have a little bit of a chicken and an egg, because until the developer tells you more or less what he wants to build and how big that build is, and therefore X number of cars will be coming on a daily basis, it's very difficult for you to turn around and say, well, my mitigation is X. So you got to get the developer to say, this is roughly the size of what I'm talking about. These are roughly the number of hotel rooms, if hotel rooms are involved. This is roughly how much convention space or spa space or whatever it is, because all of that brings people. So once you have a feel for that, you can turn around to your consultants and say, okay, how long will it take you to complete your studies to give me a pretty good feel, maybe not perfect, but a 90% feel. And I would say that if we are fortunate to get the right types of consultants, people who aren't either swamped, because I don't think there's going to be conflicts, because some of them are doing something in this place or that place, but as long as it's not in the same region or not for the same developer, should be okay. It's getting it done quickly enough, and I would say that, you know,
Yeah.
2 months is about the right frame of time, you know, right amount of time to get that done. Maybe 6 weeks, we got it done. Several of the big studies were done in Taunton in 6 weeks rather than 2 months, but it's about 2 months. You've got to add that to the first couple of weeks of time of working with the developer to find out the size. So now you're talking about, 10 weeks into it. You probably are gonna take a month to negotiate the host community agreement. So you're now at, 3.5 months. And then you've gotta have the 60-day
Referendum has to be
statute.
posted for at least 60 days, yeah.
Right. Before the referendum is taken to the citizenry and see if the citizens want this thing or not. So I sort of view the process as, 3.5 months if everybody's of the same mind, which is to keep it moving, to serve up, here's what it is, for you gentlemen to first decide, well, okay, I like that or I don't like that. And then secondly, if you say, well, I either like it or let's see what the citizens say, then you've got that 60-day notice period, and then you go to the referendum. The referendum that the State Gaming Board would prefer would be in September or October. So that should work. I mean, if you start relatively promptly,
Start quickly.
get the developer to pay attention, and my guess is they will, because they're probably very anxious to see if you're willing to do this. Get the host community agreement done so that you've got, this is the deal. Now I can decide whether I like it or not. If I do like it, great. Then it goes to the populace. And I think that's one of the things that makes this state, this Commonwealth, unusual. In many jurisdictions, they don't ask, for a vote. This was baked right into the statute. So to some extent, it's, you gentlemen would come to a conclusion one way or the other. And if you say, no, it's not enough, or I don't like all the aspects of it, that's one thing. But if you say, yes, I like it, at the end of the day, the population of the city are really the folks that are going to say yea or nay. And what we've recommended to both towns in Massachusetts and in Chicago, Rockford particularly, is a handful of public presentations. Complete, transparency by the developer. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. This is who's going to be involved. This is how many employees are going to come from the immediate, town, the region, the Commonwealth. Here's how I'm going to buy my products. You want local retention, local hiring, whether it's the flower shop or, something more substantial. They lay it all out. We turn that into a commitment so that it isn't aspirational. It isn't just a bunch of promises. If you say you're going to give me 2,800 jobs, you're going to sign in a dotted line for those 2,800 jobs, and there will be damages that will accrue to the city if you don't produce those jobs. So it's over the years, I think the municipalities have learned that, for no bad faith, every business wants as many options as it can. So while it's pitching the product, if you will, life is great. We're going to have, nothing but good stuff. Municipalities have learned over the years it's got to be turned into a very firm contract, because the citizens, if they vote for it, are voting for it based on these provisions, and they don't want them to be aspirational. They don't want to find out that, 6 months after they were told there'll be 3,000 jobs, well, it's only 2,000, sorry. Or, I was going to hire 2,000 contractors, construction folks. Well, we're going to do this in phases, and it's only going to be 700 people at a time, and it's going to be the same 700. No, we're not going to do labor agreements. We're going to do, everybody's learned that those games don't work anymore, and they're not supposed to work. So it's a tight contract. The contract that will be given to the developers in Springfield is probably 120 pages that they're currently reviewing. That contract will be on the website. Everybody will see what it is, and it'll be summarized for the citizens when they take their vote. Springfield has announced it wants to take its vote in June. If you wanted to do June, you couldn't get there. You're going to end up.
Not with this.
You're not far
The
enough
developer
along.
can get there, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. That's the short version. I got a real long version, but
No,
these guys don't want to hear anymore.
No, it's excellent, and, it's very interesting, as you, take us through the process. Obviously, you have a deep experience in this field from all aspects, and really that's exactly what we're looking for. So let me turn it over to the board at this point for questions.
Yeah, thanks,
Dean?
Brian. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
I guess your firm was formed in 1990, huh?
No, the firm was formed in 1970. 1990 is when we
1990 was
started.
the gaming practice was
Okay.
formed in 1990, yeah.
All right. The first thing, I think you've kind of addressed it, but I have some comments and questions. Now, you're representing Springfield and Taunton,
Right.
Yes.
different regions, so
Mhm.
you're not competing against each other.
Right.
So I think you said you have 9 to 10 lawyers who would be available to work on this proposal if we were to.
Yeah, there's 9 of us that do just gaming law.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of corporate lawyers and real estate lawyers that we use for bits and pieces. So, for instance, the host community agreement obviously has a real estate component to it. Putting a gaming lawyer on a real estate project's not a good idea. So the 9 of us that do gaming access other people in the office for a real estate component, a tax component, you know, those types of things. So there's
Liquidated
more.
damages, we talk to our litigators on, so we draw from all the areas in the
Right.
firm.
Yeah, and, you know, Springfield, I go to Springfield a lot, Taunton, nice community, and that's great. But what I'm looking for is that the commitment, in other words, if the board were to
Sure.
go with your firm, that the commitment, the resources, the allocation of all the professionals would be there for Milford. So it wouldn't
Absolutely.
be a
Yes.
situation where, you know, we ask you for certain guidance, working with town council, that everything would be there when we demand it and when we ask for it, and I just want to make sure that Milford's number one.
Yep. You will see Kim and I anytime you want. We have the advantage right now that, you know, we're still working on parts of the Springfield deal, so we're here pretty much every
Pretty
week.
much every week.
And we take turns flying into Boston and driving down, Hartford and driving, you know, up, so not a problem, not a problem. We'd love to do this. We'd commit to you that Kim and Mike, Kim, myself, and Mike Schaller, who's the principal other partner, along with a fellow named Paul Jensen, 3 of us will be here all the time. It's basically a 3-person job. We've found one person sort of is working the mitigation aspects and making sure that, you know, it's clearly understood as to what is required from each consultant. You end up having to enter into agreements with each of those people, so that's got to be buttoned up real tight. One person is typically working with the developer. What are you doing? When are you going to do it? What's your partnership agreement? Have you got Foxwoods locked in? You know, what are they putting in? Because you want to make sure all the people have skin in the game and the like. And the third person is the one that will, believe it or not, coordinate all of this, because you've got consultants over here, you got a
It's a
developer
massive
over here,
coordination.
you got Wall Street saying, I can finance this XYZ. We want to turn that into something real, not just a hope. It's a massive coordination project, so the 3 of us sort of take turns as to who's fulfilling which function on any given particular deal. Right now, Michael Schaller, our partner in Springfield, our partner in Chicago, who's doing the Springfield stuff. He spends almost all of his day coordinating all this, making sure that this agreement has been passed on to that person, that city council member's questions have been answered concerning that matter. And believe it or not, it's 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Kim and I have divvied up the other parts of it, so
Yeah,
yes, we'll be here.
okay. Back in the 90s, there was a proposal made to this board, and that was a power plant. And when that was announced, when we all got together and started talking, I mean, that was the largest business development in the town of Milford ever, and it's funny, a lot of the environmental concerns, a lot of the groups came forward. Matter of fact, it was placed in my neighborhood, and people were afraid about EMFs, cancer, water, all those issues. So it was really done like in a textbook style. We have a lot of qualified people, appointed, elected people in the town of Milford. So when we decided to entertain it, same sort of thing here. I mean, most of us, I don't know if this is a good thing for the town of Milford or not.
Mhm.
But I think it's a challenge. I think it's an opportunity. I'm not afraid of it, and nor am I apprehensive or totally excited about it. But I think, you know, working backwards, if you mentioned, Mr. Froelich, that and I also have read, that I guess the referendum has to be in September or October. Is that something that is, because as the months go by, I think the Gaming Commission and the Governor's Office and all that, I think when they hear from the residents or they hear from the communities, it like evolves sometimes, or there's extra time. Do you think there's a possibility that could be extended, let's say 2 or 3 months as far as the referendum?
I think the state has basically said that it will start accepting applications for Phase 2, which they'd ran a 2-phase process. Maybe in May, and maybe as late as November. So, you know, there's some flex in their schedule. I would think that, you know, if you're talking about a month or two beyond September and October, yes. I would think that if you're talking much beyond that, you know, now it's kind of cutting across the commission's desire to start revenues as quickly as is possible to the Commonwealth. So, you know, within that time frame, I think it would be fine. I think if you said, let's wait another 6 months, it'd be a
I
problem.
mean, my opinion, and, you know, this is all new to us, okay?
Right.
Will never happen again in probably 600 years, just like the Pope, right? You know, we've had some people who have come to us who are dead against it. No, we don't want it.
Right.
We've had a few people, yeah, I think that would be good for the town of Milford. And I think the majority of people are in the middle, just like a bell-shaped
Absolutely right.
curve, okay? They're saying, we want information. We want to be educated. If we're gonna, I mean, the greatest thing that was done with this whole proposal is that the electorate is the people of the host communities will be able to vote up or down. I
Correct.
think that's a great protection.
Agreed.
I think that's probably the best thing that was done regarding this whole legislation. So my desire would be to do everything possible to get all the information, to hire, you know, back then we hired environmental scientists. They worked with all the police chief, the fire chief, the town planner. In Milford, we have a private water company, the Board of Health, all the boards that we have.
Sure.
And whenever these people get involved, they do a good job, investigatory, looking at the information.
Sure.
And I think that would be coupled with the professionals that we engage,
Absolutely.
because I think it, you know, involves a higher expertise.
Yeah, and to the extent that I may have not made it clear, the consultants in all of these jurisdictions work with the department heads in the city, you know, or in your case, the town. So, you know, and they can accelerate or they could take on more or less depending on the department. So if you've got a traffic department that has the expertise to take a look at, okay, let's assume it's 10,000 cars a day additional coming into the area. If they've got the ability to do that analysis, the consultant he's not going to be as
As
heavily
needed,
involved.
right.
Right.
If they don't, then the consultant's going to take on a little bit more work, you know.
But I
to
think
make-
as far as advising,
Absolutely,
local knowledge, because everything is local,
absolutely.
okay? So I would like a situation where we do all that stuff. I mean, totally open process, working with everyone. There'll be there'll be local groups in the town of Milford. At some point, the legislation, we have to work with the surrounding communities.
Right.
But I just want the people of Milford to have all the information possible
Right.
on all the issues. You know, you mentioned some, you know, water, traffic, you know, are we gonna get, if we don't get the 2 exits on 495,
Right.
then I think that would make us, that's not gonna work, all right? The water, the noise, the illumination, all the environmental and other concerns that we haven't thought about. So I think all the information, and it has to be, you know, you mentioned 3 or 4 months. I mean, I think it's gonna be a very busy summer, because I remember when we did the other project, it took, you know, close to a year. And once we had all the information, working with all the boards and with all the citizenry and groups, because what they did was they made us work harder, because they kept asking questions.
Sure.
And we needed, you know, the experts, the scientists, the technical individuals and their backgrounds, the principals, to answer these questions.
Sure.
And then we had, I think, 3 or 4 informational meetings.
Yeah.
We had one on this building, we had one at the senior center, we had one at the library.
Right.
There was information on TV, and then at that particular time, it was a zoning change for the upstairs. So that's what I would like, working backwards. You know, I would like a situation where we delve into all these issues, you know, turn over every stone, looking at every crooked, you know, nook and cranny, right? Get all the right people, work with the Milford officials.
Right.
Work with the groups that we, you know, would tell you that you should work with these groups and
Right.
these. And then we have informational
Sure.
hearings, so that we can educate,
course.
not only ourselves, because we don't know at this point if this is a good thing for the town of Milford.
Right.
Right.
But we want to be educated.
Sure.
And then, you know, present all the information, graphs, charts, whatever information we have to present, done in a very, very exhaustive way, very comprehensive way, very scientific way, so all the people have the information. And then, whenever that referendum occurs, at least they'll be informed, at least they'll have the information. And that's what I'm looking at, going from the referendum date backwards.
Sure. This is the same situation in virtually every state and municipality, you know, that a casino is thinking about coming to. None of these towns or cities know what it's like to have a casino. They don't have one. By definition, it's new legislation. So my experience has been, number one, that the only way the governing body, if you will, whether it's a mayor or a selectman such as yourself, is going to get comfortable with the concept is to have every bit of good and bad put on the table and say, these are the good things, these are the bad things. On balance, this is where it comes out. What do you want to do? One. Two, it's the only way, you know, and I oftentimes think legislatures aren't exactly the best process to go through. It's our process, so we've grown to love it. But they did the right thing here. By putting in a referendum provision, they basically said, you know, you guys might decide yes, but the citizens get to make the decision.
Sure.
And the state has basically said that, you know, you're supposed to communicate the information to the citizens. The whole process is one that has to be transparent, otherwise people think there's, you know, it's like the old 40s and 50s. Everybody assumes something is wrong in casino gaming because, you know, back in the 40s and 50s it was controlled by elements that you don't want to have around. These days they're all publicly held companies, so they're more than adequate. They're more than capable and desirous of laying it all on the table and saying, every bit of info you want is here. It's the only way you guys can make a decision. It's the only way the citizens can make a decision, having all the facts put in front of them, saying these are the good, these are the bad. I will tell you that the casinos have learned to listen to the cities. In the old days when we first started doing this, every casino developer wanted to build a casino that was a Las Vegas casino. Our mayor in Chicago, Mayor Daley, who was not exactly a reticent guy to give his opinion to people, said, you bring one of those things here and I'll run you out on a rail. I don't want the neon lights, you know, I don't want the goofiness. It's got to be nice, it's got to be classy, it's got to fit in the city. And that's one of the things that you have to make sure the developer's aware of, which is, you know, I'm not Foxwoods, I'm not Las Vegas, I'm the town of Milford. This should fit into the community as much as something this big can, because it's going to be a big facility, and that's part of the educational process to the developer. So to some extent it's a two-way street. He's got to know what it is that's important to you and that you want, and that you're going to prioritize and say, these are the three most important things to me. That other stuff you're offering me is nice, but I really don't care. So there is that transparency, that desire, that hope that people are flexible about seeing, you know, yeah, this on balance is good, or you know what, now that I've looked at it, I don't need this. So you got to lay it all out there, and then the people get to take a vote after you guys take a vote.
And it was interesting in that process, you know, a couple of decades ago, there was, every day something would happen where someone would ask a question, and no one ever thought about it, and then we would get involved with town council. Town council was very much involved, especially with all the stipulations as far as zoning.
Sure.
So that we touched upon, and we protected the community, and as you said, when someone said that this would be done, we made sure it was done.
Sure. Sure.
So, I mean, that's what I'm looking for, Mr. Foley, so that we can become educated, that I, at some point, can say, when all the information is out, I can give my opinion
Sure.
to the residents, the recommendations.
Right.
But more importantly, they'll have their own,
Right.
they'll be able to go to all these informational meetings, you know, whatever they need to become informed.
Right.
And so hopefully it's a process where everybody becomes informed.
The only person who wouldn't be informed is the one that at the end of the process just shied away from everything and didn't want to be informed.
Sure.
The recommendation that we've made, and that most of the cities that we work in want to do, is number one, everything is on the website. Number two, there are usually 3, 4, 5 in-depth,
Information
multi-hour informational meetings where the public can come and say, what about X, what about Y? And they do. And they're
Yes.
vocal in their opposition and support. And what we've been fortunate enough to do in the Commonwealth is get the developers to lay out a program and then get people to pay attention and ask the questions based on the facts that are available at that point. And the facts keep being added up and added up. And it really is a very transparent process. There's very little that, I can't think of anything. I'm sure there's some question that somebody could ask that nobody's thought of, but I can't think of anything that hasn't been published to the public. Here it is, summarized, so that you're not reading a 120-page document. You're reading, you know, a summary, a layman's summary of a document. It's the only way to do it.
Now, as far as the developer, he's come here a couple of times, he's presented some preliminary information. But I would think that very soon that he has to present, he has to present something to us.
Sure.
So then you'll have something, or whoever the firm is that we choose. So we have to start from something. So I would say within a very short period of time, the developer has to present, you know, solid plans, his
Right.
ideas, and
Right.
architectural designs and all that stuff to the town of Milford, correct?
Right. They'll prepare, with Foxwoods having just joined, I'm assuming that the partners will get together and work up what we call a schematic. It's it's what they will deliver at the end. It's not architectural drawings that you could construct something off of, but within, I would say, 5 to 10%, what they show you is what you're gonna get. Now, they may twist a restaurant here, they may take one of the 5, 6, 7 restaurants they'll have, and instead of having them all lined up here, 4 might go here, 3 might go there, but the basic plan of where the casino is, what it's gonna look like, where the hotel will go, where the spa goes, what's it going to have in terms of finishes, colors, ingress, egress, parking, will all be laid out very definitively. And that contract that I referred to before, the host community agreement, will say that's what you're building. You can't build anything other than what's in these drawings. So they're very specific, and the developer knows that, you know, as he gets to the point of saying this is it, these people are all sophisticated and know enough to know that really is it. That's what's going to be built. It's not going to change after that. Yeah.
So, Ms. Kopp, Mr. Froelich, so if this board decides that you're the one, okay, both of you, your firm, what would be the timetable, let's say, over the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks? What are some of the things that, you know, working with you, what are some of the things
Sure.
that you would want from the administrator, town council, and all those aspects?
Well, the first thing you'd probably want to do is confirm that the developer is going to pay all these consultants and
Yeah,
us
let
and
me
the like.
just give you a little bit of update of where we are on that, because that's a key point. The town of Milford is not gonna pay any of this.
Right.
We had a preliminary discussion with the developer. There was a preliminary memorandum of understanding, which also involved the developer depositing $65,000 with the town. So we have those funds now that we're holding on to, and I think, Jerry, you got confirmation that we're still entitled to hold on to those funds.
Yeah, Mr. Newton's gonna give me a letter indicating just that he, even though the MOU is expired, that he intends that those funds will be part of what will be used to move forward and do the evaluation and everything else.
So we have that as a starting point.
That's a starting point. There's 50,000 that's available through the Gaming Commission, which I know the developer would expect us to access, and we certainly would access. So
Yeah.
right now, in
Right.
theory, there's 115,000 available.
So that's what we have right now, which is not financially impacting the town of Milford at all. The town administrator, we've gotten the paperwork, we know how to access that $50,000 if and when we have to
Right.
do that.
Right.
And then going forward, you know, like I think you had indicated, it's gonna have to be laid on the line with the developer. Look, you know, there is no
Right.
budget here.
Right.
It's whatever we deem necessary, you're going to have to fund. And if not, it ends there. So I just wanted
No,
to
absolutely.
point that
Absolutely.
out in terms of the financial, just so
Yeah.
you have an understanding where we're at
Right.
financially.
Yeah.
And just to give you a sense, the order of magnitude, the various consultants, and I can speak fairly definitively because we've done it twice here and we're doing it in 2 other cities. You know, the consultants is probably a $300,000 price tag. Might be a little bit more if we eliminate one consultant, or you take 2 consultants and have them do have them do 2 functions, which is certainly been done in some
appropriate.
places.
Right.
You know, maybe you could knock 25 grand off of that, maybe 50 tops, but you're talking about somewhere between $250,000 to 300 and 325 for just the consultants' work. That's before you pay us our outrageous hourly rate, or before the developer does, excuse me.
Which is what?
More than
Mine?
What?
Mine's $840 an hour.
And what do you suspect that, if you enter into a contract agreement with the board, that, our tab would be for your law firm, roughly?
My guess would be, since you're not gonna do an RFP, my guess would be that, you know, I could readily see it being $400,000, easily. You know, 450.
450 in addition to the
Correct.
three?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Taunton, and this is on their site, so I'm not saying anything out of school. Taunton's mitigation consultants were $300 and some odd thousand.
Write those numbers down.
I could get you the fees, but my guess is that our fees were probably $300,000 to $400,000 in
Yeah.
Taunton also. Our fees in Springfield will be substantially greater
I'm
than
not
that.
holding you, I'm just that,
Yeah.
No,
just.
It's
the
a big
ball-
number.
Just
Just
to
to make sure.
absolutely.
It's a big
make
number.
sure
We need to
everybody
know.
knows the number we're looking at,
Absolutely.
especially
And-
the developer.
Yeah, and that's, the key from my perspective is, if a developer, any developer is asking you to consider this, from my perspective, even though it's not a statutory requirement, it's another form of mitigation impact cost, which is, why would the city pay any fees, you know, for this type of thing? It ought to be on the developer's dime, and if the developer doesn't have enough faith in his project to commit to that, then, you know, where are you going?
Right.
So.
We haven't found any problems in any jurisdictions. All the developers in those jurisdictions
Sure.
have stepped up. And they know that this is not a burden of the city.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the $800 doesn't really faze me, because Jerry makes about
Roughly.
$1,400 an hour, you know, so that's right.
In that range.
No, I think this is, no, this information is.
I bill at that, I'm not saying I'm
Right.
worth that, but, you know.
I'll just a few more comments, Mr. Chairman, that's all. I think this is, like I said, it's a proposal. It's a serious, serious proposal. I think people are serious, and I think as far as the community is concerned, I think everything has to be done. I mean, we're not looking to spend less, we're looking to spend more,
Sure.
so that we have the right people, we have the right professionals to work with our professionals, and then we have all the information that, you know, mitigates
Sure.
and the concerns and whatever the case may be, so, and that's probably a good thing, that that's the system, so.
Yeah.
So just my last question, Mr. Froelich, Ms. Kopp, even though you're in Taunton, even though you're in Springfield, you'll be able to give Milford 100% attention, with resources, allocation, manpower and all that, professionals.
Before I started doing this gaming stuff, my handicap was 6. It's now up to 16. And the reason for that is because I gave up playing golf to do this. So yes, we will do that without, this can't be done part-time. It's a big effort. And it's an effort, by the way, that you gentlemen will be, you know, fairly involved in. It's not just a
Whether you want
flyby
to or
saying,
not.
hey, what do you think, you know?
It's a serious
Uh,
decision for the town, absolutely.
And it requires time, so, yeah, not a problem, we will be here.
Yeah, and I think the last thing is that, you know, what we want is that when we have the referendum, the public has all the information
Right.
to make a decision, yes or no, and then we live by that. And I think that's a great process.
Agreed.
And they will. I mean, all the towns we represented,
Bless
they certainly will. This will be a very transparent process.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a fair amount of public skepticism that is natural when governments
course.
enter into agreements with the gaming community.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you mentioned transparency. You've talked, and the others, and you've heard some of the things they're looking for. You know, it's important to me that at no point do the people we contract work with become advocates for pro-work on either side of the issue, but instead have, you know, just simply arming the community with data, allow them to make informed decisions. So to that end, you know, I would expect that should we enter an agreement with you, that we would look for potential conflicts within your offices, either in the real estate side, the gaming side, anybody who's on the board of directors for public, private, or any other gaming industry
Yeah.
is deriving benefit from that, we'd expect to understand and try to eliminate that
course.
potential conflict. Because
Obviously, we don't have any. If we thought we had even the potential for one, we would have brought it to your attention here. We took a look at, what we know is published anyway, because we don't know everything. The parties that have made proposals to you and the parties that we would think you would need in terms of consultants and the like. And from what we know, we don't represent anybody, we have no relationship with anybody, and we're clean insofar as we know.
And that's a fluid process,
Sure.
right?
Of
There are
course,
people
it changes
changing.
all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
New investor comes in,
New investors,
Sure.
somebody goes from one gaming
Somebody
group
leaves
to
there.
another.
Right.
And you bring on new attorneys.
Sure.
Personally, I appreciate the fact, and I think it's of benefit to the community, that we engage with a law firm who's had gaming industry experience, host community agreement experience, because there's things obviously within that scope that we're not aware of, and would expect to bring on that insight. The only experience that this community has with gaming, other than having gone and flown to Las Vegas, is in a small venue, Twin Rivers in Rhode Island,
Okay, Rhode Island.
and then the Foxwoods and the like in Connecticut. And so there's certainly that small New England town component that's very different than you might see in a big city.
Sure.
That we obviously want to maintain a certain quality of life, and any trade-offs, they were understood on the front end.
Right.
Of course.
You don't have to look far to see any comments that I've made publicly, whether it's a 600-room or 400-room facility. It's not something I'm necessarily in favor of, but that's not what this is about.
Right.
Right? I can have my own personal view, and should the town decide through referendum that it wants gaming, I can be a part of the process to negotiate the best agreement possible.
Sure.
I think there's a whole lot of factors that are problematic in this, but I think getting the data makes sense, should this go forward.
Right.
And that's before, the influx of money starts coming in. And what I mean by that is that influence that one can see, or a community can see, when gaming developers start throwing out, $2,000 to the local Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts, no offense.
I'm taking notes.
That local attorneys start clamoring to be their counsel, that.
Guys, you're not gonna get $2,000 for coming here tonight, so just, I wanna make that clear right away.
But, there's certain things that happen when the developer comes out to visit the community and start to influence the process, and in some respects buy that process, right? Whether with dollars or promises. And so what we want to do is weed through that and navigate through that. And, a lot of the things you talked about were absolutely some of the things that concern me.
Sure.
The discussion, I think, is frankly silly. The developer at this point has talked about having on and off ramps off of 495.
A little premature.
Yeah, just a little bit, because anybody that's tried that understands it's a 10-year process if they can ever do it, especially where we are in the location of these exits. So promises aside, what we need are folks who are expert in the process being able to help us navigate and explain fact from fiction, what the likelihood is that commitment can be met, and I don't mean on or off ramps, I mean any commitment.
Any commitment, of course.
And how best to position that should the townwide referendum, and should we get to a point where there's a townwide referendum. This particular developer hasn't been active in this community, hasn't set up camp, if you will, and so I'm just waiting to see some things of substance from the developer.
And you're going to be able to control that to some extent. Example, in Maryland, two developers spent millions of dollars well before any referendum or anything was
Right.
taken, beating up each other and talking about, how
Why
this
they're
is
better.
good.
Yeah.
You might note that didn't take place in Springfield or Taunton. And that wasn't an accident that it didn't take place. We didn't let it take place. The town folks there said, the mayor said, that ain't gonna fly. They want to do some general advertisements saying, I'm such and such a company, and just talk about their company, but not anything else, that's fine. But that's all we're gonna allow them to do. If you wanted to say you can't be seeding the clouds, as it were, by running around and offering this, and this, you're well within your rights to do that. You can shape the process, and you can minimize the attempts to early influence, either the process or the populace until the referendum is actually taken.
And that's a piece of the pie that actually concerns me, because the part of the budget that a developer might have to seed the community with dollars, and I'll leave it at that, is not near what this mitigation dollars have or could possibly have.
Sure.
It would be kind of hard to mitigate the impact of what a developer might be able to do.
Sure.
So that's very interesting that you position it that way and talk about our ability to even control that.
They need you horribly. Without you, there's nothing.
They don't have a
They gotta go
proposal.
someplace else.
They need your
So-
agreement to get to the proposal
Right.
stage.
So you can set down the rules of the road, the guidelines. This is the way we're doing it. You can only talk to us in public. You can't talk to us outside the public sphere. You can't spend money on this. You can't spend money on that. We don't want any lobbying. I mean, all
Yeah.
of that is available.
Because frankly, sometimes it's just not helpful. Tends to cloud the facts with data that's not necessarily accurate either. So I appreciate that. I'm not going to bring up the types of concerns that this community has. You've already mentioned them. Dino's mentioned them. They are the list of things that have been mentioned, and I know you're well aware of those. I'm impressed with your background. I had an opportunity over the last week to look at some more of that was publicly available. I initially had some concerns that said if we were simply meet with you and sign up with you, that may not even be in the best interest, because we may want to vet 3 or 4. I'm concerned about the timeline and how we need to get to October enough that I have a little bit better feeling about this evening, having done some background and hearing from you personally. So with
Thank you.
having said that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Let me just say that, I found that your presentation very impressive. Obviously, you have a great handle of the information, the issues that we're going to face. I think we all understand the timeline. I think the date is October 13th that the state has put out. That's changed, so, working backwards from that date doesn't give us a lot of time to cover the tracks that I think have to be covered, depending upon when and if we get this proposal. Because to be clear, there's really nothing to analyze until we receive a proposal. We don't know what the traffic's gonna be, we don't know what the environment, because we don't know what they're proposing. But at the point that we get a proposal, I think that we, as the board, owe it to the town to be in the best position possible to get the best information that we can, so that first, this board can make an informed, responsible decision. And if that decision is to go forward, then of course, the voters need to have information to make the best possible decision. If it ends with this board, then there is no vote. For me, and I've said this, to people who have asked me, do you want to have a casino? As a selectman, I don't feel that I have the luxury of giving that opinion right now, because I don't have any information. And if I want to do my job responsibly, and for the best interest of the townspeople, I have to do that work. And it is going to be a busy summer.
Right.
And I'm not looking forward to it. But this is a huge, huge decision that the town faces. It can't be taken lightly. And there's no question in my mind that we as the town need a firm like yours to be able to give us the proper guidance and give it to us quickly. Because when we get that proposal, things are gonna happen really fast. And we're gonna need to be able to analyze the traffic. We're gonna need to have to analyze the environmental impact, the economic impact, and coordinate all of that so that the townspeople know what's going on and you have that true, transparent process. But also, we as a board can assimilate that information because our decision is gonna be the one that's gonna come first.
Yes, it will.
So, you know, from my point of view, it's very easy, and I would be looking for a proposal from your office to go forward, but I'll turn it over to the will of my colleagues as well.
Jerry, as going forward with what the chairman has just stated, what would be the process as far as this board if we felt that this law firm should be chosen?
Again, this is what your board wants. If you're happy with them, satisfied, and you want to engage them, then I would ask them to put together sort of a letter of engagement, send it on to your board. I'll review it, your board will get it. At that moment, when you have it, if you're ready to sign up, you sign up and move. I think that's the way to go.
Jerry, what would be some components of the letter of engagement? Would it have
Well,
timelines and?
To the extent we can,
I mean-
since we don't know right now because, you know, nothing's here, but the letter of engagement will spell out obviously what they're going to do, what their charges are going to be, in the broadest sense, with as much specificity as they can. They won't govern the timeline, but they'll be telling us that, you know, based on the timelines that are set by the law and they're gonna be set by the developer, they'll meet them and they'll make sure that they coordinate everything. So that's a broad statement of what you get, I think.
Well, specifically, I asked the question because what I'm interested in is understanding those types of activities that you can engage prior to proposal, and those types of things that are post-proposal plus 4 weeks, plus 5 weeks. You know, I look at,
Well, typically, the kind of engagement letter you're talking about is almost really the type of agreement that you end up with the developer to some extent, because a lot of that is driven by the developer. So I'm thinking of an engagement letter that says, we're going to assist the city in doing the following mitigation studies. We will retain the services of the, competent, experienced mitigation specialists for fire.
Water, sewer, traffic.
All the items we've discussed. The developer will pay for all of those, number one. Number two, relative to the firm, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna retain these people, we're gonna coordinate their function with that of the department heads here. We're gonna assist the city in developing a transparent process. We're gonna assist the town in doing a host community agreement. We're gonna assist the town in, determining whether it wishes to proceed to a referendum, and if so, how that referendum has to be drafted. All of this to take place within a time frame that would permit complying with the September or October deadline that the gaming board has basically put down. So I see the engagement letter being more general than I think you were thinking of. The key item being it's not being done on your dime. So from my perspective, those things will start to develop as you go. I can put in some general references saying that we think we can get the mitigation work done within 2 months at the time you start, that type of thing, if that's what you're looking for.
some of that would be helpful, and the other thing is when you begin to retain, my guess would
You
be,
can get,
One key
you can
very
obtain
important is that-
consultants now.
yes, exactly, and that's
But
my
we won't have
question.
anybody do anything until we get the commitments from the developer.
Oh, of course,
Yeah, so
of course.
The
That would be your
engagement
next
letter from
first
them,
step,
which
yes.
but it'll all be subject to the developer.
Letter of commitment from
agreeing.
the-
Yeah, if the developer doesn't do that, well, it's all over anyway.
Right.
Right.
I mean, there are consultants you could engage. We can look for the consultants who don't have the conflicts, who could be available, who have the time and the resources, and get them lined up, so to say. I don't think that there's much that they can start on right now. All we know is a general location. We don't know, is it a hotel tower and X rooms and Y rooms and X square feetage?
5
square footage
restaurants,
of
3
this.
restaurants.
Right, so it's hard for them to say, because all of those things will drive how many the day trips, how many traffic are gonna, so they can't do a lot. They can certainly be ready so that when you say go, they go, but they can certainly be
Right.
retained.
Right.
We could certainly meet with the relevant department heads. Obviously, we'll take guidance from Jerry or from you folks of, let's talk to them about generally what are their concerns, what are the city's concerns. So
Yep.
we have those kind of in the back of our mind, working with the consultants. So those things could certainly be done.
Okay.
The actual nitty-gritty though, and the real work you need, which is gonna take the longest time, We really need the commitment from the developer before I think we can do a lot of those.
Okay.
That's the problem.
All right.
It's like, it's kind of a
Yeah,
chicken and egg.
and it's really a
Having a chicken and
question,
egg
you
problem,
know,
right.
that the town has its resources in place.
Sure.
So that if and when we do get the application, we're ready to hit
This
the
is gonna be
ground
busy.
running to analyze it.
Absolutely.
That's really what we need to do.
Right.
That's where
And-
we're at.
And maybe I want to just make sure you and I are saying the same thing. You're not going to get an application, obviously, I think you know that from the developer. What you're going to get, I think, the way most of these start out, is the developer is going to say, I'm thinking in terms of a 100,000 square foot gaming casino floor. I'm thinking in terms of a 325 room hotel that's going to be a, 3.5, 4, whatever star hotel it's going to be. 30,000 square feet of convention center space, a 15,000 square foot spa, a buffet, and 4 or 5 dining restaurants. And ballpark, this project is going to look like X number of thousands of square feet altogether, and roughly, pick a number, it's going to come in somewhere between $500 to $800 million, more likely than not, based on what we think we know of this market.
Absolutely.
That's what they're going to tell you, and not a lot
Okay.
more. So, I think that on a practical basis, yes, we'll get you the engagement letter for you to consider. I think that the two things that have to happen very promptly is a phone call needs to be made to whoever it is that's heading up the consortium with the developer and say, one, we're going to send you a 2-page engagement letter, or 2-page pay letter, which is you're going to pay for all of this. And our estimate is currently X, but it could be more, it might be less, but whatever it is, you're going to pay for up to. And he'll want some limit, and we'll say, fine, we'll put that limit on for the time being. But if we run through that for whatever reason, it either stops right there, or you agree to pay more. Two,
Sure.
I need your proposal by such and such a date in order to hit the
Or you
October
can
date.
drive the process. a
So
little.
those are the first two
Sure.
phone calls that
Okay.
take place after
Okay.
you say yes.
Okay,
That's
Yeah.
great.
that is helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Good. Yeah, Mr.
Wanna
Foley, Ms.
motion
Cobb, and then,
or-
and after today, you could, have discussions with town council, the administrator, and if there's any questions we
Great.
missed, or you'd like to further clarification. And of course, he makes $1,400 an hour, so I think he should
I
use it.
don't
you
know.
know?
Wanna make a motion?
Yes, motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion made. Is there a second?
That's
Gonna
to
be,
engage the services of Shefsky and Folish.
Well, at least to
Polish.
receive the engagement
Engagement
letter
letter.
and proceed to contacting the developer.
I just wanted to understand the parameters.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Jerry, is that
begin the
proper
engagement letter.
motion?
I think that'll do just fine.
Okay,
Motion made, seconded.
all right.
Any more discussion? Not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Welcome to
you.
Milford.
Thank you for your time. Pleasure meeting
Things
you
go
all.
So
forward,
far.
you might be spending a lot of time here.
And hopefully next time I'll shake hands and won't have
Exactly,
this
we all
cold
won't be
anymore.
sick.
Oh, that's okay,
Yeah.
but, no, thank you very much for coming here. Your
Yeah,
presentation was excellent, and I think it's really
Thank
gonna give us a sense of comfort that we have a direction going forward.
Pleasure meeting you.
Well, you know,
Thank you.
it's not necessarily by choice, but sometimes things are thrown at you and you have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting process, but you'll live, you'll get through it. Have a good one.
So is it the red eye back?
There's nothing. Last one back is 8:40, so 6 tomorrow morning. Have a good evening.
Where are you staying tonight?
All right,
Back in town,
Oh,
at the
good.
airport
Yeah,
hotel.
oh, good,
It's
good.
just easy.
All right, have a good trip.
Absolutely.
nice to
Okay,
meet you.
bye-bye.
Have a good one. It was a
Nice to
pleasure
meet
meeting
you.
Thank you.
Good meeting
Yeah,
you.
okay.
All right, so the Boy Scouts figured out they weren't getting
They
$2,000, so
want
they're
$2,000,
gone.
so they're ticked.
They're out of here.
I'm a little angry at you.
They're out of here. Guys, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was a blast, right?
They all now know what they don't want to do.
They didn't imagine the limit.
Yeah, they don't want to be casino lawyers. That's all you
Put a
talk about. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that that's gonna be so much. The problem's gonna be, I think like he said, is to really get, the particulars that we're gonna need to be able to make a decision. Excuse me? He's gonna throw us some rough numbers. You know, it's not gonna work.
Oh, for the gazebo?
This guy's gonna have to
Nice
come
meeting
forward
you.
with some real stuff.
Oh, okay.
I called and left a message in, John.
All right, let's see.
Okay, with John TV.
Hey, that's a good
We'll
move to be
take
on
care of
TV.
you.
It's all right.
Okay?
All right, good luck, huh?
Buckle up.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Rob, are we still on, or? Okay, that concludes our public hearings. The next item that we have is the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, all budgets under the jurisdiction of the board are on target, with the obvious exception that we've spoken to previously. Secondly, brief update on the police roof. We received the preliminary design submission last Thursday, and myself, Mike Santora, and John Erickson had the opportunity to review it. We then met today with Jim Russo of Russo and Barr Associates, went through the entire thing, gave us some options that we're still working on. For now, we plan on being out to bid by, at the latest, May 10th. The construction phase of the project is 5 to 6 weeks of actual work, and it should be done by the end of July. I had Mr. Valani attend and participate the meeting, as he will ultimately be responsible for the project. As to the town engineer search, Mr. Santora and I have begun the process. We went through the 25 resumes and determined that after that exercise, that we'll be interviewing 12 candidates next Tuesday and Thursday for a preliminary interview. And we foresee going possibly to, well, definitely to a second, and if need be, we'll go further till we come up with the right candidate. Again, Mr. Valani is participating in that process, and I'll update the board at our next meeting on where we are exactly. Finally, I spoke to Max Farrow Friday. We'll have the bid package ready for the town hall windows. He's working on it now. We expect to be out. If we don't make it by the end of this month, it'll be early April. So again, we're moving on that front, and he's also preparing specs on a good faith basis as you go to town meeting and seek a transfer and appropriation for the town hall roof. So that'll be ready to go as soon as that money, if hopefully, is approved at the May town meeting. So that's a brief update on where we are there. And again, Rick's been involved, and unfortunately, Rick's going to be more involved as I go, because everything we do, we try to keep a folder for him. He's here with me almost daily. So again, so there'll be a smooth transition. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Dean, question, comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Louis, I think you mentioned something. So, on the 18th, which would be a big day, your last meeting, will you be able to give us some type of summary of the projects, the unfinished business, some of the
Yes.
things that have to be done and all?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Bill?
No questions or comments?
Town engineer, you're only interviewing 12, huh? You didn't want to interview more than that?
Well, that's more than
I
I've
know.
ever interviewed for any position.
It's
But
huge.
we got 25, and there were just some that looked so similar on paper. You're making a decision, do I expend the extra time, or do I take a shot, and then if I don't see somebody that appears right, I bring them back. We figured we'd rather, and I don't want to use the term, but I'll use it, we'll waste that time. I'd rather expend it out front and hopefully give us a better candidate.
Yeah, good.
And Brian,
Yeah.
and Louis, you and Michael, you were happy with the caliber of the candidates?
Oh, I think there was a good group of people there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to bring one item up, and I don't know if it's under your report or not, but you had given us a package, Lou, from the Regional Planning Agency, that it looks like it's a concept proposal to serve as a representative for the casino, but as I looked through it, it dealt primarily, if not at all, if not entirely, with the surrounding communities.
That's correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess at some point get this off to Mr. Nunes and see if that's something that he's interested in participating in. It has to come from the proponent. Is there any old business, Dean?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
No old business, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moving along to new business. Lewis provided us with a authorized mileage allowance memo indicating the town of Milford last increased their allowance in January of '06, increasing the rate from 29 cents per mile to the present 35 cents per mile. On January 1st, 2013, the IRS established the standard mileage rate to be 56.5 cents per mile. And the Commonwealth has a standard of 45 cents per mile. And then we also have a number of responses from communities as to how they reimburse. What would we like to do with this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we increase it and make it consistent with the IRS established standard mile rate at 56.5, since I think even the Commonwealth is a little bit lagging, and I think we can revisit this periodically, maybe on a quarterly basis, see if it should be adjusted up or down. Hopefully, we make it go down.
And
Because gas prices hopefully will go down, but at this point, I'm comfortable doing what I'm familiar with in the private sector and aligning to the IRS rates.
as of when?
I'm comfortable doing it the first of next month.
I'd be
We have it in our budget?
Well, that would be a question if the,
recommend that you do it, if you do it July 1st.
For the
They
new
don't have
fiscal
it in
year.
the budgets.
all right. Is there any room for movement in terms of doing anything this calendar year?
Again, I would suspect that they don't have it in their budgets.
That the departments don't? Okay, so we'll have to budget for it, and we'll have to do it in the, I just want to make sure the employees aren't shortchanged in the process. They use their personal vehicles in good faith for the benefit of the community and the taxpayers. And I'm sure the taxpayers understand that there's a cost, and that cost is going up radically with mileage and wear and tear on vehicles. Most of the people that use their vehicles for business use in the private sector get reimbursed at a rate greater than 35 cents per mile. So if we can't afford it in the existing budget, then I'm comfortable doing it July 1st.
So the
Yeah.
question is like, who does this? Who gets this money? Do we know?
Yeah, we sign the warrant, and a lot of times the mileage slips are in the warrant, within the packet. So usually you can see, who's submitting for mileage. It's usually Board of Health employees. It's usually inspection employees. There have been other ones from other employees that I've seen in the warrant packages. There have been some from even the school department, where some people have used personal
the main-
to go to
The
conferences.
main people that use it are, as Billy suggested, the Department of Inspections. You'll have 4 or 5 inspectors in there. And those are people that make inspections to the various construction sites 1, 2, 3 times per week as they have to. The Board of Health, obviously. Again, any member of the Board of Selectmen traveling on behalf of the town, if he took a long trip, as would be the town administrator or anybody else, would be reimbursed for their mileage. if they
Typically
so did.
coursework too, Louis. I've seen a few of those, right?
Pardon me?
Coursework, where somebody would go out and either conference, or they have specific training that they
Yep,
need to,
they'd be
and they can get it
compensated.
from another
Town
town.
council, when he goes to the various courthouses
Yeah.
on the town's behalf, is eligible for that and takes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad Bill brought it up. It's something that's needed, and I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So do we have a policy on this as to
No, we
who
don't.
can get it and who can't?
No, we don't.
So if you drive to town hall from your house?
No,
Do you get a
no.
mileage reimbursement?
No, absolutely
So
not.
if you drive
If
from
I-
town hall
if I
to
went
Boston?
If I go to Boston on your behalf or the town's behalf, and I choose to put in mileage, I would get mileage for
So
that.
how do we know that?
Well, it's been the honor system for
And,
For
and, and
a very
I
long
guess,
time.
what's the mileage that triggers the use? Do they have to go 5 miles? Do they have to go 1 mile? Do they
There
have
is
to
no
go-
trigger. Anything that they travel, they would put in. I will say one thing in my years here, that I monitor this very closely, the ones I sign, because when I sign for all the employees under the Board of Selectmen, obviously. That would include the inspectors, town council, members of the board, myself. Again, I think
So
the
how do you
policy is
distinguish-
good, but I've noticed no abuse in my entire career.
So, but I mean, how do you, I'm just trying to get a
No, and
sense
I
of
know
how
you're
we
not
use
alluding
this.
that.
You know, I'm just trying to get a sense of how we use, how do you distinguish between someone who might drive around Milford all day, or someone who might, you know,
Again, it
go
would,
to
it
Worcester
would only
or
be the,
Bend
it would only be the inspectors.
Okay,
The Department of Inspections uses it, and I believe the Board of Health does also. And the only other instances that I'm aware of, again, any member of the board out of town on behalf would have the opportunity in town council.
okay. I don't know, I mean, it seems a little loosey-goosey, but if that's the motion, that's the motion. Any more discussion? Not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. We have a request from the Kennedy Donovan Center for a permit to obstruct a sidewalk. It looks like they're planning a fundraiser on April 5th. And I don't even know if I'm reading this right, but it says a medium night to advertise for it. They would like to place signs on the Louisa Lake fence, the Tank Field fence, a sandwich board on the median strip in downtown area near Pine Street, sandwich board on the medium strip near Cape Road and South Main Street, and a sandwich board, a sign on Cedar Street at Granite Gulf. Some of these, Lou, aren't even under our jurisdiction.
No, Louisa Lake is not under your jurisdiction, Tank Field is not under your jurisdiction, and
Granite Gulf as
Granite
well.
Gulf is not.
Okay.
Oh, you also forgot Congress Terrace and Iderola Avenue, so I would add those two.
Yeah. All right, is there a motion?
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made.
So given that it's not under our jurisdiction, what is the motion?
Well, some of them are.
Some of these are not.
Some of
so-
them are.
So which ones are we
Well, I
making a
guess you have
motion
the-
for?
I guess you have the medium strip in the downtown area, you have a medium strip near Cape Road and South Main Street, and that's it.
So we'll approve, the motion is to approve those two median strips?
Whatever we have jurisdiction on.
Okay, so I'd second that.
Mr. Chairman, Lois, would it be possible, we have a lot of, volunteer organizations who may put signs up at Louisa Lake, the Tank Field. Is there a way of writing a note or an asterisk to them that when the event is over, that they take down the sign?
Seeing we don't approve the Tank Field,
All right, well, okay, so let's say the entity that approves it, I think that would be something that we should let people know, once the event is over, that they take it down, 'cause otherwise it becomes unsightly and all that.
we can let them know.
If we can,
Yep.
if we can.
Yep.
All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. We received some memos from Lou in response to the informational request that we sent off to various committees about the remote access for meetings, and as I counted up, it comes back 3-2 in favor. Right, so, this is before, so, to me, I think the next step would be to decide, number one, if this is something that the board wants to go forward on and pursue, and if so, then it seems the next step would be to identify the means that we would need to allow the remote participation at meetings. Dean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think at this time, I would just make a motion that we take it under advisement and discuss the matter with town council at a later date.
Motion made, take it under advisement. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Yep.
This was proposed actually by council as a point solution to a meeting where there might not have been full participation by the Board of Selectmen, I think. And I just don't want to be in a situation, I'm okay with taking it under advisement because there's nothing pressing today. But take it under advisement. What I'd like to see is a proposal come back. And I don't want to make this the highest priority proposal drafted by a town administrator, current or future. But I think it's worthwhile saying, under what types of conditions should we consider adopting a proposal? So my suggestion is, let's get a date, let's put it out there, let's talk about August 15th, have a proposal come back, talk about some of the technology needs and some of the recommendations from town administrator regarding the types of rules and that we set.
Bill, you made the next meeting, not August 15th, right?
No, I mean August 15th. Let's, just put a date and space where we'll have a,
Okay.
and it's an arbitrary date, it's the end of summer. And let's have a proposal so that should we need to go do something, it isn't, again, time sensitive based on a meeting that we've got to have, and somebody's got to go to China, or somebody's not available for personal health reasons or whatever. So I'd just like to see under what conditions the town administrator thinks that we could do this, and do this for the various boards.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman. Sure.
All right, so the motion's been made to take it under advisement, and
Get a proposal for the end of summer?
if you, after the last presentation, if that goes forward, we might be busy this
Might
summer
be
on
busy.
some other things.
I get it. And we can
But,
revisit it, and whether it's,
I mean, that's okay. Let's take it under advisement and allow the new town administrator to review it, and at some point, come forward with some of the things that need to be identified. When you look at the regulations set forth by the Attorney General, they're pretty inclusive and pretty much spells out the process going forward. To me, it's a technology question, what we need to outfit our buildings, to allow it to occur. Okay, any more discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. New business, Dean?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm sorry, it looks like I missed the F4 here.
That's no, I think, right?
Yeah, what do we have here? And this is from David Breen. He's looking for an after-hours church event for this Saturday at 1 a.m. The church is expecting 65 to 70 children for a private event. That's 1 a.m.? This event is an alcohol-free event with plenty of chaperones. Looking to extend the common victual license so that they can prepare pizza and soft drinks for them. This is the Faith Community Church of Hopkinton, Saturday at 1 a.m. until 4 a.m. It's a church-sponsored alcohol-free party, and they're requesting the extension of the common victual license.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
are those, Louis, are those dates, those hours the right hours?
Yes. You're gonna have 2 or 3, you'll get 2 or 3 probably from pins every year in conjunction with the graduations also, remember?
Oh, okay. Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? I will vote in favor as long as I don't have to chaperone. That's unanimous. We received correspondence from Hopkinton Selectmen in response to the letter that Lewis had sent, inviting them to a meeting, apparently to discuss the casino. I sent a response back today, which you should have a copy of. Did you provide that, Lou, to Bill and Dean?
I put one in their box, but I also brought one just in case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is what went out today in response to that letter, and we can wait to hear back if that's something that they want to do.
Very good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll see where it goes from there, if anywhere. We received indication from ICE that the town passed the compliance review and inspection, and the requirements of Section 274A of the Immigration and Nationality Act were discussed. Forms I-9 were reviewed. There is no basis for further investigation to be conducted at the town of Milford, so that's a good step forward for all of the town personnel. Additional correspondence, we had youth commission meeting minutes. We received notice from the Gaming Commission about their website. And we also received, as we do every year from the assessors, a spreadsheet of the average single-family tax bills of towns within a 15-mile radius of Milford. There are 37 such towns, and out of the 37 towns, Milford's tax bill rated 28th, meaning there are 27 other communities that have higher average residential tax bills than Milford. So I think, again, it's a tribute to all of the people involved, keeping our finances, as well as the services that get provided to the town, that get provided to the townspeople, in good order. Any other items, Dean?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Bill?
No, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, with that, we have 2 appointments for executive session, negotiation with the Library Association, and also the new town administrator's contract.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded, roll call vote.
Aye,
Dean?
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Bill? I too vote in the affirmative, and we will not be returning to open session. Thank you, and good evening.